Welcome to the InStory show. I'm Devorah Spilman, your host, and our theme is what does it mean to expand into a new story? And how do you come out of hiding and dare to be seen for who you really are by saying yes to your soul and telling your story? And today I'm thrilled to welcome Kristin Kirk. Hi, Kristin.
Hi there. Thank you so much for having me.
It is a pleasure. I'm going to read a little about you and then we'll dive in. So, international spiritual teacher and healer Kristin Kirk is gifted with extraordinary vision and healing capacities from her 2003 awakening. She accesses our multidimensional true self to transform individual and collective wounds, trauma, and karma back to light and to restore our innate inner wholeness. Kristin works with individuals and groups all over the globe to accelerate healing, embodied awakening, and self realization. Oh, and we're going to get a taste right now. So, just like everybody else, I'm going to ask you, what does it mean to you to expand into a new story?
Let me just sit with that for just a moment so I can actually feel it and share it energetically as I'm speaking. I'd actually love to invite everybody as they listen to this interview today to rest in your own heart, rest in your own infiniteness, and you'll be able to receive so much more from the sharing that happens today.
Mm,
Because we're like tuning forks. And so my system is resonating in this multidimensional way through all these layers of consciousness that is the energy behind what fuels each of us opening up into our own new story. And so throughout our time together, I am resonating as that tuning fork, like when you have a C note and then you hit the tuning fork and then all the other tuning forks in the room start to vibrate. So that is going to be happening in our time together today. So my interest is in supporting everybody waking up to the magnificence that they are on the inside, which just keeps regenerating the new up-leveled, more extraordinary story every day.
ooh. Oh, I just love that. That is beautiful. So that we're not just thinking about what you think about this, we're experiencing something happening to us.
Yeah. This is, I mean, sure, you can think about the things that we'll be sharing and talking about today, but there's a deeper opportunity here to allow each person listening to drop into their own presence and listen from that depth inside oneself. It's like when you're listening to someone speaking and you can suddenly hear, oh, they're not telling the truth, or hear, oh, they have an uncomfortable feeling about the thing that they're talking about, right? We recognize that because we're present in ourselves. Even though
Yeah.
it seems like it's on the outside, it's actually inside us. So I'm inviting people to rest deeply in themselves as this interview is happening, to continue to tap into that place where they are that C note, where they are that true frequency of themselves. And in there, that can start to vibrate, open more and more and more through this interview as we continue to speak to that depth of all of our consciousness.
Okay, I love that. So, what a beautiful expanded starting point. So good. So, I would love for you, kind of inside this place where you hold now, to tell us how you got here. I really believe that our stories that we tell each other are a piece of that shift to hear what was possible for you. Oh, maybe that's possible for me. For those of you watching, like there's more that's possible than we were led to believe.
Right. Well, the first thing I would say is just reiterating what you just said, which there is so much more that is happening. There is so much more that is real than what we have been led to believe. And what is true for me is that reality literally expands to a larger and larger new reality every week, every other week. And then that integrates, and then it opens up again and opens up again and opens up again. So my interest is also in inspiring people to trust themselves and to access their own heart. And for me, the initial opening came from a combination of that, where I had had a sense of deep direction in my life and had been following that. And at some point, it didn't seem to pan out. I had followed that direction and it wasn't working. And so there was an inner collapse in a
When
way.
was that? About around
This
when
is
was
in 2003 when my awakening happened. And I mean, there was actually another awakening that happened before that, but this is the one that was that I'm speaking about, and was directly related to the healing work that's happening now. And what I ended up doing was surrendering back and through my heart from whence that inner impulse had come. So there was this drive to find a new kind of healing work. So I studied with different shamans, different healers, and ultimately it just came back to that I just needed to be able to see. So one of the stories is, I'm studying with a Mayan shaman who was extraordinary, and we were waving eggs around joints to take out the trauma out of the joints. And I'm seeing multidimensionally already, and I see these spirit beings come and take blockages out of people's joints and stick them into the eggs. So I start asking about these spirit beings, and they didn't want to talk about that. They wanted to have me focus on the eggs. And same thing with this other African shaman that I studied with that was also extraordinary. And I'm seeing the different beings that are coming. And I just, after studying with these different places, and then the last one was studying with someone who did muscle testing and asking yes or no questions using the kinesiology. And so I came home after spending years studying with different people in this sense of failure that I couldn't do yes or no questions. I couldn't study with people that weren't seeing the different dimensions that I was seeing, because I had questions that they couldn't answer, and so when I came home, there was this just collapse on the inside of this giving up, like in terms of the universe, of like, universe, you were calling me, this directive came from you, and I tried and I can't do it. So I'm surrendering it back to you. And that was the first time I actually saw there was a pathway both directions. There's the pathway we follow on the outside of the direction that we're given from inside truth, source, our heart, God, goddess, whatever words make sense to each person. And I had not actually realized that you could go the other direction. And so in that failure, I went the other direction with my hands open, with my inner directive, giving that inner directive back to source from whence it came, through my heart, into the back and the way back recesses of my heart, with a sense of failure. And this just saying, like, if you want this to happen, you are going to have to do it, because I tried. So that was one of the big shifts that happen on the inside. There are a couple of other things that came into play. But in terms of people trusting, that's one of the keys. And I trusted the universe, which is
Well,
why
what
then
happened? What happened when you did that?
all right, well, so I'll share the other couple parts. So I realized I had trusted that deep voice within me with my life. And then I also recognized that there was some aspect of hypocrisy that was happening, because if I trusted that voice, then why did I sometimes decide whether or not I was going to do it? So, and because truth was so important to me, that sense of hypocrisy was just unbearable. So I decided to let that small voice in the back seat of the car take the driver's seat. And when I did that, 3 fears arose. One was that I would lose total control of my life. My life would completely change. And I actually loved my life. I loved the private massage therapy practice that I had. I rode my bike every day to work. I mean, I liked my life. And then the third thing was this feeling that I would be irrevocably bad. So
What do you mean irrevocably bad? Like a bad person or bad at it?
That God made me wrong.
Ooh.
That I was bad to the core.
Ooh.
That I was unfixable. Right.
Wow.
So I sat with this for a while, of the struggle on the inside of what was more important: truth, letting that voice in the back drive, which I could only let that happen if I somehow navigated these 3 fears.
Wow.
Or keep the fears, because they were more important to protect myself, And so ultimately I ended up deciding that the truth was more important. So there was a profound acceptance that if the truth was I was irrevocably bad and that the universe had made me wrong.
Wow.
Makes me want to cry every time I actually really touch that place in myself.
Yeah.
That I was willing, the truth was more important.
Wow.
So that's a tough thing to ask of anybody. Mm-hmm. So even your listeners are like, I don't want to do that, right? But listen to the rest of my story, right? Of what happened in that, and why I keep speaking about trust, right? This deep trust. So I trusted, and in that, I didn't heal those fears. I was able to actually set them aside because my conviction was complete. It was 1,000% conviction I was going to let that voice drive the car. So it was actually these 3 things that all came together of surrendering my life's purpose back inside to source, accepting that my life could completely change. I would lose total control of it. And I might be actually like, badness incarnate, and letting this voice drive. And so it was an experiment. And I surrendered. And nothing happened. The same way when you set an experiment, you set it and you let it go and you see what happens, right? It takes a little time after you plant the seed to see what happens. The grass doesn't just suddenly spring up and turn into a flower, So in the honesty of my experiment and my conviction and my surrender, the honesty of those allowed that experiment to unfold. And a few months later, I don't remember if it was 2 or 3 months later, I started seeing pictures come out of people's bodies in my massage therapy practice. And they weren't vague pictures. They were full Technicolor details of the person who was in my office, the scene, who they were with, the relationships, the thoughts, the emotions of everyone who was in that moment, and seeing the trauma that got lodged in that person's body from that moment that was creating the physical issues that they were coming to me for the massage therapy.
Wow.
So, and with those images then came information on how to actually support the healing of it.
Wow.
So I'll fill this out just a little bit more. So that continued for about 7 months, where I was getting validation from people for all the details that I was seeing. I mean, I was completely freaking people out left and right with the level of detail of what I was seeing and sharing. And people started wanting this work more than the massage sessions, because I was getting at a deeper root of the pain. And after that, I then started seeing a depth of vision that people couldn't validate. So I needed those 7 months of validation to really hone and trust the skill set that was developing on the inside. And so then I started seeing, it's just extraordinary what's actually happening, where physics and light and geometry and math and sound and story and history and karma and DNA, our experiences, our memories are all actually completely woven. It's one thing.
Wow.
It is one extraordinary miracle. And so when I said at the beginning that my reality keeps opening up each week to a new layer, it's actually, it's true. I mean that. And that the level of detail of the extraordinary miracle that we all are, that's happening every moment, is present and available for all of us to tap into and support our own healing, our own awakening, our own clarity, our life purpose, to really live the life that we came here to live.
Wow. That's why I love people to tell their stories. Seriously, and I sometimes have to pull it out because we get used to having lived it. But but people listening, they don't know about what happened to you. So I want you to talk a little bit about what you're now seeing in the people you work with. Because like I'll tell you, like I do deep work and it's transformation healing, but I don't see stuff like that. And lots of people don't do that in an extreme way anyway. Like it's not necessarily the form of their gift. So I would love for you to talk about what you're starting to see as people begin to trust their own unique gifts, because we tend to compare ourselves to someone who's seeing full detailed scenarios and go, well, I can't do that. So, but that's not the point, to be just like each other. So I would love to hear a little bit about what you're seeing, what's opening up, what's been helping people sort of discover and trust their own gifts.
Yeah, thank you so much for saying that. I end up needing to say that all the time, where we each have our own gifts. You don't go talk to a surgeon and suddenly expect to be able to perform surgery.
Right. Right.
You wouldn't expect that.
Right.
You don't watch a exquisite ice skater and assume you're going to put on ice skates and just say, "Ooh, I'm going to go do that." Right? So that's the same thing here. We each have our own purpose. And for me, with my purpose of being here and supporting people awaken and come into their own mastery, their own unique sacred superpowers, I need to be able to see at that capacity to support that. Mm-hmm. So that's my job. And then other people's job is to show up in yourself, right? And to come into that. So when I was initially inviting at the beginning of our sharing for people to open up to that place in themselves, to be their own alignment, their own aligned, pure, heart radiant self, is to keep opening up inside to start accessing that tuning fork that I'm amplifying just simply in this dialogue.
Right.
And so for people, the more that we listen, the more that we listen and trust ourselves and trust that authenticity, each of our own unique gifts is just that. It is unique. And our authenticity is one of the gateways to that. Mm-hmm. So often we cover up our authenticity because we're trying to fit in. As women, we've been taught to be appropriate and nice and pretty and kind, completely squashing our authenticity. And then we're taught that those things are then our authenticity. Sometimes they are, but sometimes they're not. So the authenticity is that gateway, that sincerity. And that's also why my initial movements on the inside of surrendering my life's calling back into my heart and inviting that voice to the front and fully surrendering to the possibility of those fears being true is that, and I need to come back to those fears, is that the sincerity was 1,000%. The authenticity was 1,000%. And to address those fears, because it's really important, my life completely changed. I shifted from having a private practice in an office in Northampton, which I loved, in all the seasons, lots of winter, lots of snow, lots of shoveling, lots of ice, to spending a lot of time in Hawaii, swimming with turtles, singing with birds out on my deck, doing healing work with people all over the world through Zoom, supporting a number of people at once, as opposed to only helping one person at a time. And yes, I lost total control of my life. And the universe chose that version over the version I loved. And this new version is extraordinary, right? Had I known that, I would have said, yeah, I think actually that sounds interesting. Let's try that, you know? So that addresses the first two, the fear of the losing control and my life totally changing. Both did and became exponentially more satisfying. And the deep fear, that unbelievable core fear that probably a lot of us feel in different ways. Some place we feel shame or we don't want to be seen. We want to hide that. It's not pretty. It's dark. It's ugly. I just can't deal with that, right? All those things we have. So in my full willingness for that to be true, what surfaced was a depth of vision of seeing all of my past lives and seeing the moments in time where I either did something that I would now say, ooh, yeah, that wasn't so good, or that was bad, or that was irrevocably bad, or something happened to me where I felt really, really bad. So the purpose of that coming forward was for the healing of all of that. And so the healing work that I was doing with my clients, I had to do with myself. So the level of authenticity was amplified. And so I had to see, oh, when I made that choice in that gender, in that culture, with whatever the limited options were, as a man or as a woman, and to see with compassion and understanding, I started to understand every kind of choice that we make. Wow. From people who are convicts, who are doing horrifying things, to being on the receiving end of all that. I had to, you don't have to, I had to, because it was my journey, for my being in this role of healing, supporting the healing of anybody with any experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I have seen the worst of the worst, the most horrifying through my clients and through myself. And I had to meet each moment with that same trust.
Mm-hmm.
And in that meeting of it, and again, you guys don't have to, there's help here. You don't have to do this all yourself, right? I also opened up to a team of guides, of light beings that were helping me through this process. So I wasn't alone when I was navigating all that stuff. My guides were all there holding me and embracing me while I met those moments in time to surrender through them into a deeper reality. And what would happen with my clients and what would happen with me. So when we go back to those pictures, is that I would see the current scene of who the people were, what the traumas were, surrender through those moments to help the healing. And then we'd go to a deeper layer. I would see a picture of a different lifetime with the same person, the same players, who they were in that lifetime, what the storyline was behind the scenes that then was related to the current situation that was happening now. And I would meet each of those thoughts and emotions and traumas with the divine light and love and compassion and the exact frequency, spiritual frequency that was needed to resolve whatever that thought pattern was, whatever that trauma was. And so every single horrifying thing I ever saw literally turned into light and love.
Wow.
Literally. And
Wow.
so this process was happening during those first few years of my awakening through each of my clients as I was supporting them, resolving their traumas. And then I'd have to do it at home every morning. I spent about 3 or 4 years with about 3 to 4 hours in bed every morning before I went into the office, going through that whole process on the inside. So there were just lots and lots of lifetimes that needed to be, that had some story that hadn't resolved.
Mm-hmm.
And so the authenticity, the sincerity, the willingness, the trust were all essential. They were all crucial for meeting those moments. And we learn from fire that you're supposed to move away from pain. But emotionally, it's the opposite. It's completely the opposite. Emotions heal because you move closer to them. Mm-hmm. And so that's what all this work was about. And part of what I'm doing in the healing work is I am amplifying the field of light and love and truth and compassion and understanding to such an extraordinarily high, intense degree that individuals have the support they need on the inside to meet those moments. Mm-hmm. I don't meet those moments for you.
Right.
But the support is so immense that it can happen sometimes instantly. Yeah. And can happen gracefully. And the unfolding of those stories starts to happen in people. Mm-hmm. And you ask the question of like, what happens now in the healing work is that incredible support is here. And because we're living in such incredible times where evolution is expedited, right? It's just happening so fast that, and with the team that I work with is massive and extraordinarily gifted, that we're able to unravel eons of stories really, really quickly. In one session, we will unravel eons of time. So that these stories that our energy is embedded in, right? Like we know when the person that we have a problem with that we're irritated by, when they show up, your whole system goes haywire. because your energy is engaged in that. When you free up those energies, you have massive amounts of energy. And your energy is no longer engaged in that tangled story. It is actually free to be your authentic, infinite, gorgeous, magnificent self.
Ooh, wow. It's just so wondrous to me to hear people talking about the way they work and what's possible. So now tell us what your free gift is, because I know people are going to want a larger taste. So tell us about that so that people can open to receiving what you're talking about, because it's really happening. So tell us a little bit about your
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Well, I will add that in doing this healing work, it's energetic and it's actually still in the transmission. So I have recordings that actually carry the energetic blueprints of the healing that happens. And so one of the transmissions that I love to share, there are two actually, and I'll make sure people get both if you
I
sign
think
up.
it's on there already, but two things.
They are on there. Great.
Yeah, yeah.
So one of them is a soul clearing where I will feel how many people are in that clearing. And when I did that session, um, there were thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people in it, but there was only a handful, there were a few hundred that were on it live, but
Right.
I could feel all those souls.
Mhm.
So if you're drawn to watch that, your soul was there,
Right.
just outside of time to then be met at the right time in your life.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that's one of them. The other one is a light infusion, which is amplifying the light of you, the light of the universe, the light of the divine.
Mm.
So both of those are timeless transmissions. And I also want to share with people that there is a live event that is coming up for Mother's Day, and it's to support the healing of the whole matriarchal lineage because of the capacity of the beings that I'm working with and the level of intricacy of what I'm seeing. We're able to work with an extraordinary length of time and the interweaving of our history, what we store in our DNA, through epigenetics and just the construction of the universe, how everything is connected. So you can sign up to receive those two free transmissions, and depending on the timing of your access, you'll either be able to join me live. I'll just give you a way to join live at a discount, or you'll be able to access the recording of that mother lineage healing, depending on the timing of your connecting.
Right. Okay, good. Well, for this series, it's perfect timing because it's going to be May 4th while you're all watching this. And so that'll be perfect timing. All right, leave us with a last thought or two before we wrap up.
Oh, well, I want to thank you for the work that you're doing and inviting people to honor their stories, because every single person that is listening to this has a gorgeous story. And even if you're comparing yourself and thinking my story is more gorgeous than yours, that is completely false. Is completely false. And what I'm always wanting to do is point people back to their heart and their divine uniqueness, because that is the portal to God, goddess, truth, wholeness, whatever word makes sense. So I want to just honor everyone who is listening to like maybe take a moment and put your hands on your heart and just appreciate yourself. And even if you have feelings of where you aren't feeling like you're loving yourself or are critical of yourself, those are your sacred gifts to unwrap, to find the truth underneath. Those are just stories that we believe somewhere that are actually not true. I really, really mean it. I can feel the people that are hearing me right now, and I am speaking to you. Yes, those are false things. Those are not true. And I would invite everyone to come into that precious, sacred place on the inside that you protect because you know that is the truth.
Mm-hmm.
That's the truth. That's what I would love to leave people with, is that pointing to that inside of that's your authenticity. That's the brilliance. That's the sincerity. That's the love. That's the honesty, to meet that place in yourself and nourish that. And to take time every day to meet that place in yourself, even if you're still doing the nice, pretty social thing on the outside, because it takes time to undo those things, right? And to feel strong enough to speak that authentic place, speak from that authenticity. At minimum, honor that space in yourself every day. Every day, and let that grow like you would let a seed grow and watch it bloom into a flower.
Okay,
Because
so
that's what will
beautiful.
happen. Yeah.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, trust yourselves, everybody. And as I always say in farewell, first of all, thank you, Kristin. And remember, everybody, to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, folks.